Was if I could get them into the Winter Olympics, but be competitive. And then it was a matter of deciding the sport. Bobsledding was a sport.
When Cool Runnings hit the theaters in 1993, it quickly became one of Disney's most beloved underdog stories. Many fans fell in love with its humor and the Jamaican Olympic bobsled team, which changed the way people viewed the sport. But while millions have watched Doris, Sanka, Junior, and Yule chase their Olympic dreams, the real story behind this winter sports comedy is even stranger than fiction. Many might not know this, but behind some of their favorite shows lies a fascinating story. Cool Runnings is no different. Stay with us as we share 20 weird facts about your favorite film. The real team never carried the sled.
And that's a very nasty collision. Shower of sparks and ice.
One of the most iconic scenes in Cool Runnings is the scene where the Jamaican bobsled team dramatically crashes during their Olympic run. Then they courageously carry their sled across the finish line to a standing ovation. It was emotional and quite inspiring. It was also fabricated. The original 1988 Jamaican bobsled team at the Calgary Olympics crashed during competition, but never carried the sled. The crash occurred during the four-man bobsled event on their penultimate run, not the final run as portrayed in the movie. The incident was caused by a combination of driver inexperience, excessive speed, and an error in navigating a turn, which led to the sled becoming unstable and flipping onto its left side. The team did not carry the sled across the finish line as shown in the film. Instead, they pushed it to the end of the track and then walked alongside it. The crash resulted in a did-not-finish result for the four-man team. The crash and carry moment was when production wanted to give the film a more cinematically satisfying ending. The screenwriters wanted a moment that would prove the team's fighting spirit and also grant the audience catharsis upon seeing them rise again. The real team actually performed respectably for first-time Olympians in an unfamiliar sport. They finished in the middle of the pack in some events and earned the respect of other competitors for how quickly they learned the ropes of the competition. John Candy improvised his most memorable lines.
I had to win. You see, Doris?
John Candy played the role of Irv Blitzer, a disgraced American bobsledder turned coach. This character was meant to bring more emotion into the plot. Many may not know that most of his lines were improvised. Candy brought his natural comedic timing and warmth to the set, elevating the character beyond what was initially written in the script. Director John Turteltaub gave Candy considerable freedom to explore the character, and it paid off. He had trust in Candy's abilities to deliver. Candy, on the other hand, drew from his own experiences with self-doubt. He knew what it felt like to feel shame over one's past mistakes. He knew his character felt a deep reluctance to coach the team because of those mistakes. Many of the reflective moments between Irv and the team members were improvised by Candy during rehearsals. Then director John would incorporate the lines into the shooting script. The bar scenes were also improvised. Irv opens up about his past and sometimes delves into a comic monologue. The shift between comedy and pathos was something that featured consistently in Candy's comedy, so that was an easy scene to run. The feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme chant scene reportedly evolved with each take. Candy would bring a different delivery to each take and make it better. His interactions with other characters were also fun to watch. It was said that he played off his scene partners. Dougie Doug, who played Sanka, recalled how he would throw in an unexpected line to get a genuine reaction. There was no doubt that he was the perfect fit for the role of Coach Irv. Unfortunately, the film was one of his last before he passed away in March of 1994, barely months after its release. Different Canadian locations.
I have. Cool Runnings?
The show might have depicted the 1988 Calgary Winter Olympics, but it was never actually filmed in Calgary. The production team chose to shoot the Olympic sequences at a different Canadian location entirely, while all the Jamaica scenes were filmed on location in the Caribbean nation. This decision created production challenges that required clever cinematography to maintain continuity and convince the audience they were watching everything unfold in Calgary. Many of the scenes depicted as having happened in Calgary actually took place in other parts, like Alberta and British Columbia. The Winter Olympic scenes were primarily filmed at Canada Olympic Park, which opened after the 1988 Olympics. Filming in Jamaica was not the easy sport they expected it to be. The production had to navigate logistical challenges, including transporting equipment, managing large crowds of curious onlookers, and working in tropical heat that was almost oppressive for crew members accustomed to shooting in cooler climates like North America. What they got out of their suffering was the genuine sequences in the film. Using actual locations like Kingston made it feel like reality. It would have been impossible to replicate that kind of environment anywhere else. The bobsled track sequences also required the most technical filming. Real bobsled tracks are dangerous and relatively fast. Camera placement is limited and also tricky. The real Jamaican bobsledders were actually athletes.
They could ever get me to go on one of those things. That's crazy.
Maybe crazy, certainly clever. A small team of strong...
The film claims the original Jamaican bobsled team were novices to any kind of competitive athletics. One was a sprinter who failed to make the Olympic track team. The other was his best friend with no particular athletic background. Two others were reluctant to even be on the team. The reality is different from the plot you are familiar with. The actual Jamaican bobsled team consisted of highly trained military personnel and experienced athletes from the Jamaica Defense Force. They were not technically underdogs. They were elite athletes chosen intentionally for their existing physical capabilities. The team included Dudley Stokes, Devin Harris, Michael White, and Freddie Powell. These were men who had already proven themselves in the military and knew what competitive environments felt like. They had what it took to be in the Olympics: power, discipline, quick reflexes, and speed. The Jamaica Defense Force saw the bobsled opportunity as a chance to showcase Jamaican talent on an international stage and seized it. Hollywood transformed trained military athletes into lovable misfits because the underdog story sells tickets. The real story might not have become the big hit the film is today. No one would be too surprised if they made the Olympics because they worked hard to be there. Disney almost didn't make the movie. Cool Runnings rarely saw the light of day. The project languished in development for years before Disney finally approved its production. Even after approval, the studio was unsure about its commercial potential. Multiple studios had passed on the script. They were not sure American audiences would care for a group of Jamaican bobsledders. Some thought it did not carry enough dramatic weight to shake the market. They claimed winter sports films had limited appeal, and a story about Olympic underdogs was too much of a cliché. The script kept circulating through the late 1980s after the actual events took place. Several writers tried their hand at the script. Earlier versions leaned too heavily on comedy, making the team seem foolish. Others made the plot too serious, losing all its inherent humor. They needed to find a balance between respectful representation and entertaining storytelling. The script also demanded that it be shot in both Jamaica and Canada. That meant more costs for what was supposed to be a typical comedy. What eventually convinced Disney to move forward with the show was the involvement of director John Turteltaub. He had only just delivered the 1992 blockbuster Three Ninjas. John's vision for the film convinced the executives that he could deliver another cinema hit. John Candy's casting also sold the show. He brought with him experience and star power. This reassured the studio that the film would not go over the heads of American audiences, especially since the lead roles were to be played by relatively unknown Caribbean actors. Even after production began, Disney maintained modest expectations. It just wasn't the kind of production one would put a lot of faith in, especially since the studio had released a couple of major films in 1993. They placed the film as a mid-tier product. It wouldn't do too shabbily, but it wouldn't do so well either. But early test screenings revealed something they were not expecting. The audience loved the film. Word of mouth became the film's most significant marketing source. It was a hit with younger audiences, and the story inspired many people across continents. The fact that Disney nearly let this project slip away was a lesson that studio executives don't always recognize a winning script when they see one. Sanka, you dead?
Sanka, you dead?
Yeah, man.
Sanka, you dead? Yeah, man. Might just be the most quoted line in the whole of the movie, and one wonders why. This exchange between Doris and Sanka happened after a practice crash. These lines were completely unscripted and proved the importance of choosing actors who showed chemistry on camera. The scene was being filmed with Leon Robinson and Doug E. Doug, who were rehearsing their reactions to a bobsled crash. During one take, after the sled came to a stop, there was a moment of silence as both actors remained in character, assessing whether they were injured. Leon spontaneously asked, "Sanka, you dead?" in a tone that perfectly blended genuine concern with comedic timing. Doug, without missing a beat, responded with the now famous "Yeah, man." The deadpan "Yeah, man" just made everything funnier. Both characters were only just realizing the danger and absurdity of the situation. Director John recognized comedy gold when he saw it, and he kept the cut. The question itself was absurd, because if Sanka were truly dead, he wouldn't have responded at all. But his affirmative response and the chill demeanor it came with suggested that he was not dead. But he might as well have been. The relationship between the two was a dynamic union. The line became a big thing in the media. It was repeated among children and quoted in media events. It was referenced in memes years before the internet meme culture became a thing. The making of this scene showed the kind of director John was. He was open to collaborating with the actors and providing creative freedom when it felt necessary. The real coach.
To change its policy.
Oh, please change its policy.
The Alliance has the right to do whatever they feel is in their best interest.
Irv Blitzer might have been a disgraced former American bobsledder who cheated by adding weights to his sled, eventually exiled from the sport. But in real life, the story goes a little differently. The character arc from disgraced coach to redeemed coach, leading the team to the Olympics, was quite compelling. The real coaches of the 1988 Jamaican bobsled team bore no resemblance to the fictional coach. The actual coaching staff consisted of multiple individuals with very different backgrounds and motivations. The figures behind Jamaica's bobsled team were American businessmen George Fitch and William Maloney. The duo got the idea of sending a team to the Olympics when they saw a pushcart derby in Jamaica and recognized how the pushing power needed for the sport was just like that required for bobsleds. George was the primary motivator, and he convinced the Jamaica Olympic Association to support the project. He also convinced them to recruit athletes from the Jamaica Defense Force. Neither man had a disgraceful past in bobsled. They were entrepreneurs and sports enthusiasts who saw an opportunity to do something that had not been done before. The team also worked with several experienced bobsledders who served as technical coaches. These coaches taught them all the intricate details about bobsledding. Irv served as a mirror of the audience's look at the team. Irv is initially skeptical and sees the team as a joke, as does most of the audience. He gradually begins to see the team growing into a real thing, and so does the audience. The team starts to develop their worth in his eyes, and so does his pride. He carries the audience through an emotional journey, and the team's ultimate vindication becomes more satisfying because we've traveled alongside someone who started as a doubter. John Candy's portrayal contributes to the character's importance. Cinema operates by different rules than documentary, so one cannot fault them for telling it differently. Blue MAGA. Cool Runnings was not always meant to be called Cool Runnings. For most of its production, the film's title operated under a totally different moniker, Blue MAGA. This Jamaican term translates to skinny or underdog. It was meant to capture the team's lean, athletic appearance. The phrase originates from Jamaican patois. MAGA describes someone thin or scrawny. Sometimes it is affectionately used to refer to people who succeed despite physical disadvantages. The production team and filmmakers thought the title was the perfect fit. It had Jamaican roots and connected the film directly to the culture. The word blue referenced both the team's bobsled and possibly the Jamaican flag colors. Everyone involved in making the film had grown attached to this title throughout months of shooting and post-production. Scripts, production materials, and early marketing drafts all used Blue MAGA. But as the release date drew closer, the Disney executives grew increasingly nervous. Through multiple test screenings and research, they realized that American audiences had no idea what Blue MAGA meant. This posed a new kind of problem. Focus groups stared at the title, unable to even pronounce it right. Without context, the phrase meant absolutely nothing to the target demographic, and it might not even prompt people to check out the movie if the title was barely alluring. Disney feared that the confusing title would hurt box office performance, and their fear was justified. The studio faced the dilemma of either keeping the title and honoring the film's Jamaican heritage, or taking the risk of commercial failure by changing it to something the broader audience would be interested in. The search for a new title began. Multiple options were raised and many were tested. The winning title became Cool Runnings. It came from Jamaican patois, which meant something like peaceful journey or good travels. Marketing materials had to be redesigned, and promotional campaigns had to be adjusted. Theater chains had to be notified of the new name. Some early promotional items and press releases had already used Blue Maga, which created confusion in the media. The rushed timeline also made some international markets receive promotional materials that bore the former title. Cool Runnings turned out to be an iconic title. Successful acting careers.
And tell me what you see.
I see Junior.
You see Junior. Well, you want to know what I see? I see pride.
John Candy might have just been one of the biggest names on the set of Cool Runnings. The film served as a launchpad for the careers of several actors who went on to become big names in Hollywood. For an industry that has struggled with diversity since its inception, this was a significant opportunity for actors of Caribbean descent to shine on the international stage. Leon Robinson, who played the determined leader Doris Bannock, had the most established career of the Jamaican team actors before the film. He appeared in several music videos and had supporting roles in other movies. He had significant roles in films like the 1991 The Five Heartbeats and the 1994 Above the Rim. He later joined more television series through the late 90s and 2000s. Doug E. Doug, who played the beloved Sanka, used his comedic appeal to secure roles in films like the 1997 That Darn Cat and the 2002 Eight-Legged Freaks. He became a recognized face in television comedies. His performance in Cool Runnings opened doors for him that might have stayed closed. Malik Yoba played Yul Brenner in the film, and his success has been outstanding. He became best known for his role in New York Undercover. The police drama ran from 1994 to 1998. Malik has maintained a presence in the industry for almost 3 decades now. Raleigh D. Lewis, who played Junior Bevel, continued working steadily in Canadian and American productions. It is also interesting to share that although the film was about a Jamaican team, most of the main characters were not Jamaican. Leon, Doug, and Malik are Americans. Raleigh is Trinidadian. These actors brought Jamaican personalities to life through thorough research and practice. Each actor had just started their career and the film elevated them. This is not to take away from the ingenuity of their performances. The film, of course, became what it is today because these individuals gave their best to the work. The Feel the Rhythm chant.
Feel the rhythm. Feel the rhyme. Get on up. It's Bobsled time. Cool Runnings.
The iconic Feel the Rhythm, Feel the Rhyme, Get on Up, It's Bobsled Time chant that Irv taught the team might have been one of those lines that stuck to your mind the minute you heard it. It sounded like a catchy, fun tune. In actuality, it was a kind of sports psychology. Bobsledding requires precise timing and coordination among all team members. The push start, where the team sprints alongside the sled and then jumps in, requires everyone to move in perfect synchrony. Missing the slightest second can cause trouble for the team, as it can lead to differences in movement. Verbal cues and chants have been used to help athletes match their movements without having to watch each other. It is an internal choreography. Sports psychologists have realized that chants serve a purpose beyond mere physical coordination. It creates a shared mental state among team members. The repetition induces a mild flow, allowing muscle memory to take over in high-pressure situations like the Olympics. The specific construction of the team's chant was intended to drive a rhythm. It was short enough to be repeated multiple times during a brief push start and ended with a clear action cue. It's bobsled time. It was not just movie nonsense, it was effective for its intended purpose. In real life, Olympic bobsled teams use verbal cues, counts, and chants during their push starts. The film's budget was surprisingly small.
You mean winter as in ice, baby?
You would imagine that a film that depicted the Olympic competitions would have a budget that would make any executive shake. Cool Runnings featured international location shooting in both Jamaica and Canada, required specialized bobsled sequences, and starred John Candy at the height of his fame. It sounded like the kind of production that would require a couple extra zeros in its budget. It worked interestingly on a budget of $14 million. By 1990's standard, that figure was relatively low, especially for a film of such ambition. Most major studio releases of that era fell within the $30 to $60 million range. Action movies pushed above that bracket. This financial constraint forced them to become more creative with most of their production problems. The filmmakers couldn't afford to shut down actual Olympic venues for extended shooting periods, so they used creative camera angles to make the limited track appear more extensive. The bobsled sequences were carefully shot to look just as they would in the Olympics. No part of production could afford any time wastage. The more time spent, the more resources and expenses they wasted. Production also saved a lot of money by hiring unknown faces for some major roles. These talented performers worked for standard scale rather than commanding premium rates like John Candy, who was already a big Hollywood star. The film made huge returns on its investments. There was no doubt that the studio executives were smiling to the bank once the film hit the cinemas. Cool Runnings earned over $154 million. This was a daring comparison to its meager budget. It became one of Disney's most profitable releases. It was a classic case of the stone the builders rejected, or as one would say, almost rejected. The anxiety of the executives about American audiences accepting the film became a forgotten tale. Dougie Doug almost quit.
The fastest of Jamaican sprinters. Go to Olympics, fight for Jamaica.
Believe it or not, Dougie Doug nearly walked away from Cool Runnings during production. This decision would have changed how the entire film came together. What made Doug want to leave? He grew frustrated when he found out the script rewrites were reducing his screen time. He felt like he was watching the role he signed up for slowly shrink to something of little significance. Tempers reached a tipping point when Doug confronted director John Turteltaub about the changes. Doug took up the role expecting that Sanka would be the primary source of humor throughout the film. Instead, the rewrites were pushing his character to the sidelines. Most of the focus was going to Coach Irv and other team members. John was now faced with a problem. Agreeing to let Doug go meant searching for another leading cast member to fill in for the role of Sanka. Doug had already proven that he could do the job. He had a natural comedic style about him that even director John could not miss. The director sat down with Doug for a frank conversation. He explained that while some scenes had been cut or modified, Sanka was one of the main bearings to the film's success. He gave Doug more creative freedom to play around with the character and trust his instincts. The autonomy doused the situation. Doug decided to stay, and the film's fans loved his character. The film would have been very different if someone else had taken up the role. The real team returned to the Olympics multiple times. The film ends with the implication that the 1998 Calgary Olympics were their only moment of glory. Audiences had bittersweet emotions about the fate of their favorite bobsled team. In reality, the Jamaican bobsled program did not end after that year's Olympics. They returned to compete in multiple Winter Olympics and established the country as a consistent participant in winter sports. The team competed in the 1992 Albertville Olympics, the 1994 Lillehammer Olympics, and continued participating in the Winter Olympics through the following decades. By the 1994 Games, they were no longer novices to the competition. They had refined their skills and improved their equipment. Jamaica also made history in the 2018 Pyeongchang Games, where their women's bobsled team became the first female representatives in winter sports. The original 1988 team members, particularly Dudley Stokes and Devin Harris, became ambassadors for the sport. They mentored athletes who later joined the sport and continued to maintain the program through fundraising and community support. The Jamaican bobsled team's ongoing success is due to the film's legacy. Yes, the film brought the team to the spotlight, but the Jamaican bobsled team earned the respect they got fair and square. The presence of the hit sports comedy only helped attract sponsorships and donations.
The power of the dream itself is so strong that you start to put the things together one by one.
The Olympic officials were not actually hostile.
One Derek and the one Junior, you brother and the man Sanka, the fastest of Jamaican sprinters.
In Cool Runnings, the Jamaican team faced significant hostility from Olympic officials and other competitors. The East German team saw their participation as a joke, and various dismissive administrators were not accepting of it. However, the real Olympic environment in Calgary was far more welcoming and supportive than the film suggests. The actual officials and competing athletes were generally encouraging and impressed by these individuals who were willing to try out something of this scale for the first time. The International Olympic Committee and Calgary organizing officials recognized that Jamaica's participation was precisely the kind of story that embodies Olympic ideals. The officials facilitated their participation. Media coverage of the Jamaican bobsledders was overwhelmingly positive. The real team did not get in through trials or a pushcart race. They got qualified through an invitational loophole. Experienced bobsledders offered advice and technical guidance. Being athletic did not mean the sport would be a walk in the park for the team, so they took all the guidance they received to become better at the game. The film needed clear antagonists to create dramatic tension. Sports movies traditionally require villains, and most of the time it's rival teams or internal conflict. This gives the winning team something to overcome besides the challenge of the game. Jamaica sort of has ice. A recurring joke in the film is that the Jamaican team was utterly unfamiliar with ice and cold weather. When they landed in Calgary, the team was surprised to see the ice and all the snow around. Jamaica is known as a tropical nation, and most of the time there is no winter, but the country actually has ice-making facilities and ice rinks. The real team might have been strangers to European winter, but they were not strangers to cold conditions. Kingston once had an ice skating rink, though it was not operational during the period when the bobsled team was training. The facility was built earlier during a period of enthusiasm to bring winter sports to the island. The real Jamaican bobsled team members, who were from the military and had traveled internationally as part of their service, had some prior exposure to cold weather and snow. They weren't touching ice for the first time when they began bobsled training. However, experiencing cold weather during brief international travel is different from training daily in the cold. Living in winter for extended periods and racing in the cold is quite tricky, but the film exaggerated the team's unfamiliarity with ice for comedic effect. There were scenes of team members wearing multiple layers of clothing indoors, misunderstanding winter gear, and being shocked by snow. It was all done to appeal to humor and show just how unusual the situation was. Several of the cast members from the Caribbean or Southern America had never touched snow before filming. Their reactions to the cold in the early scenes were genuine but slightly dramatized to elicit humor. The real team helped promote the film.
It's clean entry that time. We'll see how they get down before the first quarter. No, look at this.
Usually, when Hollywood decides to make a film that is based on a true story, the real subjects feel exploited or misrepresented. Telling real-life stories can be tricky, as there are many parties to please. In this case, the actual team embraced the film. Devin Harris, Dudley Stokes, and other team members attended premieres, gave interviews supporting the film, and generally expressed appreciation for the film's role in bringing international attention to their achievement. They were aware of the tweaks to the actual story and embraced the way the production had put it together.
And I definitely remember thinking how ridiculous the idea was and that nobody was ever going to get me to go on one of those.
The Jamaican bobsledders could have justifiably objected to the film's invented characters, fabricated coach, the dramatic crash, and various other departures from reality. They recognized that the film served their interests. It brought attention to the Jamaican bobsledding team and attracted the necessary sponsorships needed to keep the program alive. Winter sports are expensive, and Jamaica lacked government funding for Olympic bobsled teams. Media attention translated directly to financial support. In this transactional sense, the historical inaccuracies were acceptably traded for sustained visibility. Team members appreciated the film's themes, but some thought it was too goofy and needed to maintain some air of seriousness about their struggle to make the Olympics. The film's reggae soundtrack was controversial. Cool Runnings featured prominent reggae and ska soundtracks to reinforce the film's Jamaican atmosphere. These musical choices might have seemed like a nice touch for the music supervisor who selected well-known reggae tracks and commissioned new ska songs, so that it would translate to international audiences as Jamaican sounding. For viewers unfamiliar with Caribbean music, the soundtrack achieved its goal of setting the cultural tone. For Jamaicans and Jamaicans in diaspora, the choice felt reductive. By the time the film was produced and set for release, Jamaican music had evolved past the roots reggae that American audiences had learned to associate with the island. The controversy was based on the premise that there was little research on the Jamaican lifestyle at the time, and whatever was portrayed in the film was a surface representation of what Americans thought of Jamaican culture. They stuck to simplified stereotypes and worked with them to make the film. Every scene set in Jamaica featured reggae rhythms, as if the music played continuously throughout the island, which felt patronizing to some Jamaican viewers. It felt like a page out of an inside job script, where every time the Asian guy came to view, a traditional Chinese gong would sound. Some have defended the soundtrack choices, claiming the sound was meant to serve narrative purposes before any form of cultural education. Denzel Washington turned down the lead role.
I had breakfast with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and lunch with Nelson.
Before Leon Robinson was cast as Doris Bannock, Disney first offered the role to Denzel Washington. In 1993, Denzel was already a major star with an Oscar nomination for his role in Cry Freedom and an Oscar win for the cinematic hit Glory under his belt. His name on any film could guarantee basic box office success. Disney executives believed his involvement would elevate Cool Runnings, especially since they had little faith in it. They were in for a disappointment when Denzel read the script and turned down the role. He was concerned that the film would mock Jamaican people rather than celebrate them. Honestly, his hesitation was entirely understandable given Hollywood's track record with Caribbean and black characters. Too many films had reduced Jamaicans to simple-minded comic characters who spoke in exaggerated patois. As an African-American star gaining prominence in Hollywood, he was careful about what roles he would choose and which he would reject. He did not want to be part of a project he would look back on and regret his involvement in. Denzel's concerns also reflected on the questions of a predominantly white production, that is, the director, writers, and studio executives telling a story of these Caribbean men. It did not sit well with him. After Washington passed, Disney cast Leon Robinson, a talented but less famous actor. He did not mind that the script was the way it was. He was willing to bring out the best in the character and elevate his career. Denzel's rejection is one of the many proofs of the dilemmas entertainers of color face in Hollywood. A stolen bobsled.
Gentlemen, this is a bobsled. Sort of.
During the Calgary portion of filming, the production crew arrived one morning to discover that one of their prop bobsleds had vanished overnight. The sled had been left on set after a late shooting day, and when crew members returned the next morning to resume filming, it was gone. Now, this was not a book or pen that could get lost in the chaos. This was a full bobsled, roughly 12 feet long and weighing a couple of 100 pounds. Someone had deliberately taken it, and considering they were running on a tight budget, this was a big problem for their production schedule. The theft forced the production team to scramble. Bobsleds, even prop versions designed for filming, are expensive and complicated to replace. The production couldn't simply drive to a local sporting goods store and purchase another one. Each sled used in filming was made to match the others for continuity purposes. It was either that they found the exact replacement or that they found the stolen sled. Production security immediately contacted the Calgary Police Service to report the theft. Local authorities took the case seriously. Calgary's reputation was in ruins if a primary Hollywood production suffered theft during filming in their city. The police continued their investigation and scoured the area until they found the missing sled, abandoned in a snowbank not far from where it had been taken. The police concluded it was likely a prank. The hot truth.
I'm not smoking, I'm breathing.
There is a particular scene in which the Jamaican bobsled team is seen shivering in the Calgary winter. They are bundled in heavy coats and surrounded by snow. These allegedly freezing scenes were filmed in intense heat. The production had the problem of filming in actual winter. The winter weather was usually unpredictable, and the budget required a tight production schedule. The solution was artificial snow and heat lamps. This created a weird filming environment where actors pretended to be cold while actually sweating under heavy winter clothing. The Calgary sequences needed consistent snow coverage for visual continuity. If the team filmed a scene on Monday with 2 feet of snow, then returned on Tuesday to shoot the next part, only to find the snow had melted, the footage would not match. The weather doesn't follow production schedules. Snow melts, new snow falls at inconvenient times, and temperatures fluctuate. Production could not pause for weeks waiting for perfect conditions, so they manufactured them. Fake snow came in several varieties during the early 1990s. Some scenes used shaved ice machines that created snow-like material for the ground. Other shots used soap-based artificial snow that looked perfect on camera, but felt nothing like real snow. The production also used paper-based products designed to look like snow on camera. Each type had advantages and disadvantages. Shaved ice melted quickly under film lights. Soap snow can irritate the skin during prolonged exposure. Paper snow didn't behave realistically when disturbed. The heat lamps were set up to stop the fake snow from melting quickly, but it added to the heat the actors felt. Only indoor scenes in Calgary were easier for the actors who were creating bucket loads of sweaters under their costumes. The 1993 film, Cool Runnings, might have been released decades ago, but it stands its ground as one of the best comedies to hit the cinemas since the inception of Hollywood. What are your favorite scenes in the film? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel.